Welcome to week 11. I'm sure that most of you have done remarkably well. You either came in convinced or you became convinced that you would be better off as a non-smoker than as a smoker. That is why you're succeeding. Unfortunately, not everyone who has tried the nicotine replacement products has done as well as you. The evidence is clear. The nicotine patch, the nicotine gum, the nicotine lozenge are not a panacea to cure nicotine addiction. They do, however, work best when used in conjunction with a comprehensive stop smoking program that emphasizes behavior modification. The Clayton program is such a program. That plus your determination is the reason you have reached this stage. You trusted the program, you followed it, and that is why you are succeeding.
Now we want to show you how significant your success is. But first we need to make a distinction between two important terms. The first term is lapse. A lapse occurs when someone who has been in the process of becoming a non-smoker breaks over and smokes a cigarette. While that's not a good thing, smoking one cigarette is not the end of the world. Unfortunately, some may use what is called the abstinence violation syndrome to justify continuing to smoke after that lapse with one cigarette. The rationale is, oh my God, I just smoked a cigarette. Well, all is lost. Now I might as well just smoke the rest of the pack. The second term is relapse. A relapse requires smoking at least one cigarette a day for 7 straight days. Anything less is a lapse. That said, let's compare relapse curves for smoking, alcohol, and heroin. Each of these drugs is both psychoactive and addicting. 100% of the patients included in this illustration were non-users of drugs at the end of active treatment. Those who failed during treatment are not shown here. Along the bottom of the chart, you're looking at months since the end of treatment. On the vertical axis is the percent of people who are successfully abstaining from using nicotine, heroin, or alcohol. Early on, almost any program works. Unfortunately, commitment often diminishes fairly quickly. A high percentage of the successful individuals relapse. Look at how similar the relapse rates are for all 3 drugs. Short-term success is possible with almost any drug treatment program. But when you look at success rates long-term, only a few programs have a good 1-year result.
You are beginning week 11 in the Clayton method. That means that you have been using the nicotine replacement products in conjunction with this program for 10 weeks. Our experience and published research suggests that 25 to 40% of individuals using the Clayton method are non-smokers at 10 weeks on medication. Therefore, you have successfully passed the period for the highest risk of relapse. Congratulations, you are doing great.
You're moving into a select group of people who have a good chance of remaining non-smokers for the rest of their lives. We want you to think about the future as you plan to stay off cigarettes forever.
I'm anxious for you to come on out and join me. It feels absolutely great to be a non-smoker.
Our ultimate goal is for you to become a permanent non-smoker. Therefore, we want to review some things that can help you remain a non-smoker for the rest of your life. Need-driven behavior is the topic for this session. We've observed that people's behavior usually consists of the sum total of the acts they find rewarding. And people do not continue to practice non-rewarding behavior long-term.
When I see someone pouting who says, I don't know why I pout, I can tell them why they pout. They get their way when they pout. They intimidate people when they pout. When someone says, I don't know why I lose my temper, I know exactly why they lose their temper. They find it a rewarding behavior. People do not continue to practice non-rewarding behavior.
That's why many, if not most of you, are successful. You've discovered that it is more rewarding not to smoke than it is to smoke.
Long after your family thought you were out of the woods, long after the people you work with have forgotten that you ever smoked, long after your good friends and acquaintances have forgotten, you know that you are still in a battle. Let us give you support. The more you distance yourself from cigarettes while you are still viewing the video, the greater the probability that you will be a long-term success.
A number of need-driven behavior models exist. The particular way we will present it was developed to describe our experience with smokers.
Abraham Maslow's research indicated that people do what they do in order to meet one or more basic needs. Maslow put those needs into a triangle, starting at the bottom with physiological needs, then safety and security, then social needs, then self-esteem, and finally self-actualization. Depicting needs this way seemed to us to be too rigid and sequential. The fact is, all of these needs exist simultaneously. We therefore modify them for use in understanding smokers by putting them into a pie chart. The most basic of our needs is the need for survival. Second, individuals need to be loved. Third, they need to feel important. Fourth, they need to achieve. And fifth, there are spiritual needs that one must address. In this model, individuals have all these needs simultaneously, and we have made the pieces of the needs pie the same size, each need equal to the other. That is simply not the way most individuals experience their needs.
This is what the need-driven model looks like for a typical 14-year-old non-smoker. The 14-year-old non-smoker seems to have a fairly minimal need for survival. I don't know about your experience, but I can tell you that my teenagers didn't seem to think very much about survival at the age of 14. They did seem to think a lot about becoming more independent from their parents.
To be loved seems to be a very big priority in the life of a teenager. The peer group is extremely influential. To feel important is clearly connected to the need to be loved by one's peers.
The need to achieve can vary in size for a 14-year-old. If a 14-year-old is running with a group that likes to study and is very interested in academic achievement, they will try to achieve. If they are running with the wrong group, as all of us parents know, then they will not be putting much emphasis on achievement.
Finally, the spiritual needs can vary, usually influenced significantly by the values and behavior of their parents. We believe these pie wedges are realistic for a 14-year-old non-smoker. A group of researchers asked some children from 9 to 12 years of age to rank a number of fears. Included on that list was loss of a parent and peer ridicule. The children listed peer ridicule as a greater fear than loss of a parent.
Peers seem to have a tremendous influence on the behavior and attitudes of young people. There are at least two ways this occurs. The prevailing notion is that one young person challenges or encourages their friend or acquaintance to do something they might not otherwise do. For example, try a cigarette. An alternative understanding of peer influence changes the direction of the influence. It involves me seeing someone I want to be like, and I want to like me. I want to be included in their group. If that person in their group are smoking, then I'll start smoking, to be like them and to be accepted.
People change their behavior when they think they will be better off. Peers who smoke are able to get other adolescents to think they would be better off as a smoker than as a non-smoker. Becoming a smoker then becomes more desirable to the 14-year-old individual than remaining a non-smoker. It's likely the 14-year-old making the transition from non-smoker to smoker doesn't pause and seriously review everything they know about the negative health consequences of smoking before smoking that first cigarette. In fact, the principal factor in that decision is probably not rational, but rather is anchored in affect and emotion. After all, many teens act as if they will live forever and nothing will ever harm them.
They become smokers for social reasons, in order to meet the need to be loved and to feel important.
During the 30-plus years we have worked with smokers in groups going through the Clayton method, we have asked everyone the same question: why did you start smoking? The most common answers have been, well, I didn't feel very socially adept. They also say, I really didn't feel very mature. A third reason they give for becoming a smoker: I watched my idols and thought they looked sexy smoking cigarettes. A fourth reason is that the kids in the group I wanted to be part of were smoking, so in order to fit in, I started smoking to be like them. So the 14-year-old non-smoker becomes a smoker in order to meet their perceived needs as a 14-year-old.
Now let's reverse the digits. Let's see what happens when the 14-year-old smoker becomes a 41-year-old smoker. Someone who is 41 years old, who started smoking at 14, has been smoking 27 years, over a quarter of a century. When we ask smokers in our Cooper Clayton groups about what is important in their lives, survival was very high on their list. The 41-year-old has also found that you can't please everybody. And to expect everyone to love you and to like you, to make you feel important, is totally unrealistic. You discover to feel important is not built only on what other people think of you, but primarily on what you think about yourself.
I'm sure every adult at some time in their life reaches that point. They look around and say, "Hey world, you have told me who I am up to this point in my life. I think I will take it from here." There are 3 questions we believe every smoker needs to ask themselves.
The first is, do you remember why you started smoking? The reasons listed are usually similar to those we have described. I didn't feel very socially adept. I thought I would be more grown up with a cigarette in my hand. I thought it would make me look sexy.
The second question is, do the reasons you started smoking still exist? The answer is usually, well, of course not. The reasons I started smoking no longer exist. The third question is, have you ever considered that you might be better off as a non-smoker? Virtually all smokers believe they would be better off as a non-smoker, but they simply don't know how to get from that thought to becoming a non-smoker.
We've seen this happen many times over the years. As people make that transition from smoker to non-smoker, the needs that drive their behavior change. The part of the pie wedge that represents the need to feel important become associated with becoming a non-smoker instead of continuing as a smoker.
The need to be loved becomes associated with being a non-smoker. The need to achieve is met through successfully making the journey from smoker to non-smoker. The need for survival expands. The need to meet spiritual needs begins to expand. You can't, in good conscience, suck smoke into your lungs and say that you're respecting your body.
How do you maintain your gain? You've gotten this far. How do you continue? You must constantly remember that you're better off as a non-smoker. The little nagging thoughts of cigarettes will continue to occur further and further apart and last for shorter and shorter periods of time.
I want you to remember one thing. If you light a cigarette and you pull the smoke into your lungs, in 5 minutes that cigarette is going to be gone, used up and snuffed out. Would you trade 10, 20, 30 years of quality life? 10, 20, 30 years of being able to breathe, being able to smell, being able to taste, being able to enjoy interactions with your non-smoking relatives, friends, co-workers without worrying whether you'll be able to slip away for a smoke. Would you trade that for 5 minutes with a cigarette? That's really the choice that many of you would have to make.
Those of you who smoke 10 or less cigarettes a day should be nicotine-free now. Those of you who smoke more than 10 cigarettes a day should be nicotine-free this next week and then for the rest of your life. You have made your gain. Keep it. Doesn't it feel great?